each one of them will say a few things about what they learned, and then we'll have a discussion at the end, which will be moderated by my colleague Rachel Mugarura. And then we'll close with the remarks from our Executive Director, Dr. George Mugalam. So I'd like to say thank you for participating in this webinar. Let me hand over to Dr. Gerald Walulia for the main presentation. Thank you, and keep it here for the next 2 hours. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Bernard, and thank you to all of you participants in this webinar. As Bernard said, my name is Gerald Walulia, and I'll be taking you through this presentation. I'll start, I think, by sharing my screen. Okay. Okay. I hope all of you can now see my screen. If you could give me a second, someone opened my door. Okay, so as Bernard has said, we did conduct a study on how media covers road safety issues, and we did a content analysis of both television, newspaper, and online media content to assess how media covers road safety issues. This report is the end-line report, but we also did a baseline report and a median report to monitor the progress of how the media was faring in terms of covering road safety issues. So this presentation is divided into these areas, but I try to rush through them so that I am able to catch up with time. I note here that the study looked at Uganda news media coverage of road safety, focusing on three daily newspapers, 3 television stations, and 2 online platforms. The time of monitoring is August 1st, 2021 to July 31st, 2022. And okay. We are aware that Uganda loses quite many people in road traffic crashes, and here we can see that at least 10 people on a daily basis are lost in road traffic crashes. And we know that the media plays an important role in increasing awareness and changing the behavior around the use of roads and other public health issues. So we think that the media plays an important role in trying to change the behavior of road users. So the purpose of this study was to gather empirical evidence of the quantity and quality of quality, frequency, scope, and nature of road safety coverage by Ugandan media organizations. And some of the research questions that we based our study on include the following. We measure the volume of stories in terms of quantity. And then we also look at what kind of prominence that the stories are given, the types of stories that are written, the kind of topics that are covered, how is background used in stories, and how are human sources used, and which sources anyway are incorporated into the stories. In terms of methods, as I have earlier noted, We used the quantitative content analysis of the coverage of road safety issues by the publications and media houses that I noted earlier. And these are the three newspapers, Daily Monitor, New Vision, and Bukede, while the three television stations are NBS, NTV, and UBC. We also included two online platforms, Chimp Reports and TDN News. So in terms of findings, okay. The sidebar that is troubling me, so I was trying to minimize it. Newspaper stories, and Bukede had the highest number of stories. We had 230 television stories, with NTV having the majority of stories, but of course the gap is not so different. 117 stories were published online on the two online platforms that we studied. There was a sharp increase in TV stories as the study progressed, and this increase is mainly attributed to the accident of the link bus, which happened sometime in May this year along Fort Portal Road, and by May 19, 2022, the death toll from this crash had risen to 23 people. So the idea is that whenever there is a fatal accident, the number of stories about road safety tends to spike. Only 18 stories on road safety were on the front page in the three newspapers monitored over the period of 12 months. And of these, 12 stories were published in Bukede, while Daily Monitor and New Vision contributed only 3 stories each to the total. So we see that generally, whereas the number of stories on road safety it may be fairly big, most of these stories tend to be in the inside pages for reasons that we shall mention later. New Vision coverage of road safety, according to this source, was a priority in the 90s and 2000s, with many stories appearing on page 1. However, the public wants to give them some hope. While it is important that people got fed up with news about death. So this is an explanation of why there are few road safety stories, that there is fatigue of certain types of stories which tell us negative news, such as number of people dead or number of people who have sustained major injuries in an accident. So according to this source, there was a tendency to lessen the number of stories that focus on road crashes because of their negativity. So we see that in terms of types of stories in newspapers, news was dominant. General commentary or opinions also grew from 5.7 in the baseline to 9.5 in the end-line report. So we see that as a result, probably as a result of ACME interventions, the amount of attention that media houses were paying to road safety issues slightly increased given the number of opinions that were coming out about road safety issues and the number of stories such as features growing from 4.3% to 6%. Of course, this is still a small growth, but given that some of the changes take time, it is still worth noting. In television, news also made up majority stories. In fact, TV tends to cover more events of accidents compared to newspapers, with only 6 features appearing over the period of 12 months that we monitored on TV. And this is also consistent with other previous research ACME has undertaken on the coverage of public affairs in Uganda that showed that almost 90% of stories covered by TV were of a news format. And this is a quote from the editor of NTV, who says that road safety stories tend to follow either an incident or a series of incidents. It's usually a crash that will spark the conversation. I don't think it's about audience interest. I think it's just the way the media covers the issue. So we see that events of traffic crashes are the major spark of road safety issues or road safety stories. Online, like television, news accounted for 9 out of every 10 stories. Again, we see that news is the dominant format across all the 3 platforms. And one online editor told us that media houses don't usually provide adequate guidance and resources to enable journalists to take the time to prepare long features on road safety. And then that road safety is not a selling story, explained one editor. So we see that there is an element of the political economy of the media that sometimes you need something which can sell, and probably, according to this editor, road safety is not one of those selling issues. In terms of reporting format, again, we see that conventional hard news format was dominant. The reporting type which mentions this one said that, this one added this, was common. And again, this is also in conformity with what we just said earlier, that the stories are based on events and that news is the dominant format. When news is the dominant format, it is more likely that most stories will be of a conventional type. In the same way, as we noted that most of the stories were sparked by accidents, incidents of road crashes, it is also evident and self-explanatory that most of the stories were event-based, and most of these events were road traffic crashes. So all the 3 media houses, media types monitored, had event-based reporting as the dominant type. Event-based reports accounted for almost 80% in newspapers. Newspapers carried more issue-based stories compared to television and online platforms. And sometimes this goes to the media type. Some types of media tend to have more explanation. I think in Uganda, newspapers still have the biggest capacity to do more in-depth reporting compared to other types of media. So newspapers registered growth in issue-based stories from 8.6 in the baseline report to 20.6 in the endline report. So we see that probably as a result of ACME intervention, we see that the number of stories which are issue-based rose in the period of 12 months to account to up to 20%. So this probably suggests that if some of these interventions can be scaled up, we may get even better results. One editor from Northern Uganda noted that as we practice journalism, we have not strived to take away the story count, because journalists are paid for each story produced. And he goes on to say that this is something he thinks is killing and crippling journalism. And another reporter in Daily Monitor noted that newsrooms haven't looked at road safety as something that is important. I think this also is in line with what we noted earlier, that from one online editor who said that the road traffic crashes and road safety issues are not a selling issue. In terms of topics or focus of road safety stories, road traffic crashes continue to dominate. And again, this is in line with the coverage of event-based reporting that we noted earlier, and the conventional type of reporting that we mentioned. And we see that online media carried a higher proportion of stories on road traffic crashes compared to newspapers and television. Enforcement of road safety measures and regulation was second across all the three media types. The focus of road traffic crashes, majority of stories from all three media types focused on motor vehicles, as you can see in the percentages. Motorcycles came in second place, and pedestrians took a higher percentage of focus on road traffic crashes in newspapers than on television and online media. So we see that motor vehicles are the major focus of most of the stories. In terms of the risk factors that are mentioned in stories, speeding was the most frequent risk factor that was mentioned in road safety coverage. When we look at the quality of reporting in terms of the use of background and context, less than 5% of all stories on road safety contained background. And this, again, suggests that most of the stories focus on what has happened at that particular incident, and they only stop there. And we see one editor from NMG who is probably castigating this type of reporting. In terms of where stories on road safety come from, we see that most stories were prompted by road traffic crashes, as we have noted earlier. Online media depended more on crashes as a source of news compared to newspapers and television. So we see that probably because of the skeleton staff in most online media, they tend to do most of their stories on road traffic crashes and incidents rather than any other types of stories. Newspapers registered a higher percentage of road safety stories originating from independent reporting. Again, this is in line with what we just noted, that newspapers sometimes tend to cover beyond the road traffic crashes. The top 10 sources in the coverage of road safety issues, as you can guess, police is one of the major sources, and ordinary people. And most of these people, I guess, for instance, are witnesses of road traffic crashes. Police officers were also the most frequently quoted on online platforms. Eyewitnesses made up a significant proportion of newspaper, of television sources. And of course, the idea of eyewitnesses has to do with the visual appeal that television is looking for. In terms of gender of sources, men continue to dominate coverage of road safety issues as sources, which is a pattern similar to what we have observed in the baseline and midline reports. Online media quoted more female sources than newspapers and television. Probably female sources had more opportunities to appear in the news, in online news compared to newspapers or television. And we see that some of the sources are telling us that in the event of a road crash, there are a few women rushing to the scene to see what has happened. Therefore, there are few female witnesses to interview. So this is suggesting an explanation why we have few female sources. Of course, there is always an explanation for whatever happens. And you can see another one on your right-hand side of the screen. In terms of multiplicity of sources, reporting on road safety continue to use single sources, especially among online stories, a trend similar to what was observed in the baseline report, with almost 80% of online stories having either one source or no source at all. So we know that there is a tendency for some of the online media to pick stories from the mainstream media and don't want to do any form of attribution. And probably this may explain why some of the stories don't have sources mentioned. Some explanation we received was that media houses don't usually deploy at accident scenes. They prefer to rely on police statements, hence the dominance of single source stories. So we see here some of the explanations that were offered why you have so many single sources. So as we wind up, we know that we note that the lack of enterprise stories mean that road safety issues only become newsworthy when there is a fatal accident or road traffic crash. And this form of reporting denies citizens the ability to put events and developments in this sector into proper perspective. So there is a direct relationship between the number of stories published or broadcast and the number of road crashes occurring at any given time. And this points to the reactive type of reporting that is evident in most of the media houses. As you noted earlier, we saw that whenever we have a road traffic crash, the more significant it is, the more stories we are likely to get about the same. So most stories are based on road traffic events, which tends to fluctuate depending on what is happening. There were observable differences in the quality of reporting across the different media platforms, with newspapers and private television stations standing out, while UBC and two online platforms monitored particularly performed poorly on some key news reporting quality indicators, such as use of multiple sources and use of background. The nature and quality of coverage of road safety issues did not significantly differ from what was observed in the baseline, and previous findings, such as the dominance of hard news and event-based reporting, single sources, and gender imbalanced sourcing remained evident. However, as we noted, there was a slight improvement in the quality of reporting that we partly attribute to the intervention of ACME training that we think that can further cause more changes if scaled up. So in terms of conclusions, there is need for continuous on-job professional training for journalists to appreciate issues pertaining to road safety. And this is particularly important because of the high turnover of journalists across all media platforms. As we know that in Uganda, as we also saw in our study on the portrait of journalists in Uganda, which indicated that less journalists stay on the job for a longer period. So this means that you need to keep training because people are going to keep going in and out of newsrooms. In terms of resources, media organizations need to commit more resources to boost the coverage of road safety issues And some of these resources may include having reporters specialized in reporting about road safety issues and allowing journalists to more time to conduct thematic news coverage of road safety issues. And this, in a way, may continue to build interest among journalists to cover road safety issues. Whenever you have journalists covering something like road safety issues, you are less likely to have, you are less likely going to have quality stories because you are going to depend on people who have less knowledge about the sector. In terms of gender sourcing, we recommend that journalists should make deliberate efforts to include female sources in their stories so that the media coverage of road safety issues reflect both male and female perspectives. Because I know that we note that sometimes journalists choose male sources because sometimes they are more forthcoming compared to the female, but you need to make it more deliberate so that you can have more female sources. I want to thank you for listening to me, and I hope this helps to generate some vibrant discussion. I thank you once again.
Thank you, Gerald. I think over to you, Rachel, if you're there.
All right, you're all very welcome once again. For those who joined us a little later than we started, I'm certain you've caught up with the gist of this Endline report. Again, to remind you that this report is available on ACME's website. So if you would like to take a look at the baseline, midline, and endline reports, as well as the compendium of stories that we will continue to talk about through this meeting, visit our website. If you don't know what it is, just Google ACME Uganda. Okay, so at this point, I would like to hand over to Charles Bichachi, the public editor of NMG Uganda, to respond to some of the key findings in this report. And we will also open it up to general discussions at a later time. So if you do have a comment to make on the report, please prepare your questions, engage in the chat box on some of the key issues highlighted. Charles, over to you. And Claire, you may stop sharing the screen so we can see Charles and hear him distraction-free. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel, and thank you, ACME, for this report. I want to thank Gerald for the report. The findings are very, very important and very significant for us as a media, and because coverage of media of crash and road safety issues has a direct correlation with how much the public engages. We set the agenda, and if we don't, drive this as an agenda, the public will not take it as an agenda. One, I would like to say 4 things. First, the report is elaborate and very, very informative. Some of the things that I note is, one, our reporting is episodic, and we treat road safety and road crashes as isolated, repetitive incidents that happen. So we as a media, we've not been able to cover this as a continuing issue that needs to be engaged with by the public and different policymakers. That's a finding which I think is very significant, and also that we primarily report it in news. So we don't deliberately, if it hasn't happened, it doesn't exist. But we know that road safety is a continuous thing. It's an everyday thing. And most of the time, if you see the focus is on motor vehicles, 71% is on motor vehicles, the four-wheelers. But we know that the biggest victims are actually the pedestrians, they are the cyclists that hardly feature in our report. And so, because we cover it as the big news, if it's not big news, if it's small news, then we kind of don't tend to focus on it. The other issue that the report points out, the single sourcing. The single sourcing is explained, and all of us in the newsroom have seen this, because we rely on the police as the source of accidents or road crash stories. So we primarily use the police, and because what the police says is what we report,